Thank you very much, Astrid, and thanks everybody. A lot of pecan experts in this room, so I feel a little bit intimidated. But George A. McKitchen is not here, so he actually apologized that he couldn't be here. So thanks everyone for being here. It has been about, I guess, 3-4 years since my last seminar here in the department, so I thought it was kind of time to give you an update of what's been going on in this few years. So going nuts, of course, it's very appropriate, and then tell you a little bit about, again, what I've done and where I plan to be in a few years, hopefully here. But this is a seminar. Everything is a little bit stretched. I'll give you a little bit of review about pecan facts and data, because not everybody here is maybe aware of what's going on, and review some of the most recent studies that we have published and or about to. Anatomical characteristics of pecan provenances, a study on nitrogen fertilization, health benefits. Oh wow, we have the president of ASHS here, what an honor. And then future program objectives. So hopefully all of you know that pecan is the Texas state tree. It's indeed an appropriate choice because it is native to this area. As you can see by this chart, Texas is really at the center of the main area where pecan is a native. It's a pretty wide area. Continuous area goes all the way to Illinois, and there are some isolated pockets all the way down the state of Oaxaca in Mexico. So I understand for a species to have such a big distribution, it also has a quite interesting genetic diversity. This is where pecans are growing today. You see how it stretched, actually expanded both directions, east and west, not as much north-south, because of course that would be a little bit more problematic, because the climate would change indeed if you did that. But also in Mexico, production has expanded greatly. I borrow a few slides from Joe Pena, who's many of you know who he is. He's an extension economist out in Uvalde. And this is, for example, tells you where pecans are mainly grown. Okay, this is the acreage by state. Texas is number one, also because it's the largest state, of course, and and then followed by Oklahoma and Georgia. If you kind of add the value of the crop to this particular chart, that changes dramatically, I would say, because all of a sudden you see that Texas is not number one anymore. You have places like Georgia and New Mexico that lead in terms of value. And that's mainly because a lot of the production in Texas actually is native trees, and native trees do not return prices as great as those from improved varieties, which you have indeed in Georgia and New Mexico mainly. Here's a situation that I just wanted to focus on the price first, look at the price of pecans in the last 20 years or so, and you can see the numbers are pretty encouraging. Okay, the price keeps going up, and that is indeed a very good time to have a good pecan orchard right now, because growers are making money. You look at see, it's gone over $2,000 per pound, which was something that just a few years ago we couldn't even imagine. And also I want you to notice how prices tend to follow in a reverse way what production is. We have a big problem in pecans. It's a species that has a severe alternate bearing pattern, and you can see the swinging is, it doesn't miss a year. Okay, it's up and down, up and down. And of course, just like, I'm not good in economy, but I know if you have less of a certain commodity, the price is going to go up. I think we can all get there. So, and I just want to now stretch this a little bit more. This is again the production of pecan over 20 years. So you can see kind of the swinging, okay, up and down again. But I separated production in the east states, and if you want to know more, here's the list, okay, and the western states. And I included Texas in the western states, although it's kind of in between because, of course, the eastern part of the state has conditions that are closer to, you know, to the Georgia and Alabama and so forth, and of course the west is closer to New Mexico or the desert. But, you know, I had to place it somewhere. And definitely a major part of the production is in the west part of the state. So you can see here clearly that production is moving towards the west, okay? That's the red line, okay? In the last 20 years, that's where most of the production is taking place because there's a lot new planting out west, West Texas, New Mexico in particular. And not only that, but those orchards are a lot more productive than they are in the east. And there are a lot of physiological reasons for that, but I'm not going to go into that. But that's something to take into consideration when we're thinking about, okay, what do we have to address for the future? What type of issues are growers going to face? Clearly, if an industry is moving west, is moving to the desert, that means that water is going to be an issue, okay, especially because pecans is a species that requires a lot of water. They estimate about 200 gallons per tree per day, okay, in a mature tree. So, and salinity is going to be another issue. So clearly we might have to address some maybe breeding or selection of varieties, cultivars. They are more tolerant to salinity conditions, both in the soil and the water. So just, you know, just looking ahead, maybe 50 years from now, certainly I like to add, moving the pecan industry to the west, I wonder sometimes if that's sustainable. And we're all talking about sustainability right now, and I don't know if we can say that. This is a pecan consumption per capita in the United States. Each person in the United States consumes about 250 grams of pecans in 1 year. Okay, so we can certainly do better than that. If we didn't have people like Sharon that actually uses about 20 pounds, those numbers would be even lower. Okay, but clearly there's a lot that we can do. We can improve marketing. We can, you know, educate the consumers, tell them how to store them properly, and also educate the suppliers, the grocery stores. They just, you know, leave their those pecans right there when you get in. You know, no refrigeration, nothing. That's not good for a product that has a lot of fatty acids in it, and they easily go rancid. So again, less than half a pound. Okay, that's consumption. So where are pecans grown beside the United States? Of course, I already mentioned Mexico. Okay, and then I should add Australia as a number 3, okay? And then there's a few, you know, countries where there's a very small production of pecans. I recently was in Peru, and I actually saw pecan trees on the campus of the University of La Molina in Lima. I was trying to explain what I do, and, you know, oh, this species here, you know, it's a nut native to, and then they told me, is that the tree that you're standing, you know, below? And I look up, and there was indeed a pecan tree I was standing below, and I was trying to explain what those trees were. So a little bit Argentina, it's growing. As a matter of fact, last year they had their first South American symposium on pecans. And South Africa, a little bit of Lebanon left. I'm sorry, Israel, and China. Okay, we're going to talk about China a little bit later on. This is the trend of import and export. You can see both are going up, and you might wonder, why do we have to import at the same time exporting? You know, it's a lot of trading across the border, mainly Mexico, because depending whether we have a high production here, then we tend to export to Mexico, or vice versa. And also there's some storage, definitely more storage facilities in the United States. So a lot of the pecans are actually brought into the United States to be stored, processed, and then they actually you know, brought back to Mexico. So, but indeed, that's encouraging. Again, more and more pecans are leaving our country. And if you actually look into the production in Mexico, that also has gone up to the point that last year actually equaled the production of the United States for the first time. So where are all these pecans going? They're going actually mainly to Asia, European Union, Mexico, and Canada. And where are they coming from? Mexico mainly. Okay, so Mexico is a big partner. About 20 years ago, 30 years ago, growers were extremely scared because they didn't like the idea that Mexico could become a competitor, and actually has not happened. According to economists, it's actually a good partnership because we actually help each other. And you can see the consumption is going up. So right now we're almost to the point that we need more supply because the demand is high. So a couple of weeks ago, all of us working with pecans got together at the Nobel Foundation for Industry and Research meeting. It was a nationwide meeting, so everybody was there, and a lot of growers were there. About 30 producers were there, and it's pretty much the same number of research and extension people. And basically, we tried to develop a roadmap for the pecan research in the future. So the growers are concerned, they're excited, but at the same time, they'd like to see, for the future, uniform pecan supply and consistent quality. And indeed, pecan supply is a big problem. As I told you, that swinging causes a lot of problems for the industry, for the growers, but also for the people that process. So they identified, actually the growers themselves identified 3 areas where they'd like the research to go in the next, let's say 5 or more years. So one is having, of course, a better pest and disease management program, which include, understanding the biology of these pests, and then also understand the resistance of plants, or whether there's some resistance to chemicals. That could be one of the negative consequences of using a lot of chemicals in orchards. Marketing is important. Growers understand the importance of improving post-harvest technology, again, to deliver a better product to the consumers, and also to include in their budget sanitation costs and prevention of possible outbreaks, which are always something that we have to worry about, and have a better control over price, which is right now is not in the grower's hand, of course, as always happens in agriculture. And alternate bearing is a big issue. As I said, most growers are that's their number one concern. So this is definitely the field, the area that I feel I could maybe provide a modest contribution, because that's closer to my background. So of course, alternate bearing is regulated by a number of flowers that are produced, and whether they're stresses, biotic or abiotic, cultivar differences. So this is one of the areas where I plan to do most of my work in the future. Starting with this last topic, here are some results of a paper which we, just as we speak, is impressed. You can see here proof only, because I actually had to return this tomorrow to ASHS. It's going to be on the March issue of, I believe they say March. Anyway, it's written over there, of the journal. And this is something that came out with... It's a work that L.J. Grauke, USDA, ARS, and my previous graduate student, PhD student, Madhulika Sagaram, did. What we did, we took advantage of a garden of pecan provenances that is actually right here at the pecan breeding and genetics station on Highway 50. What Tommy Thompson and LJ did, they collected seeds from different locations in 1994, and these are the locations indicated here. This is, of course, Mexico, okay? And these seeds were grown in a garden, in a common place, in replicated blocks at the USDA station, so we could understand some of the phenological characteristics and morphological characteristics of some of these provenances, which are now grown in a common place, in a place where the environment is the same for all of them. So it's really an incredible tool. So we looked at mainly leaf characteristics. We wanted to see if understanding leaf morphology and anatomical characteristics can be a way to kind of screen or understand more about how these provenances respond to the environment, particularly drought, because of course, Mexico is a hot place, and so we kind of a hypothesis that we might be able to find some of these provenances that are a little bit more resistant to drought conditions. So we did stomatal density, epidermal cell density, and carbon-13 discrimination, which is a way to estimate water use efficiency. We also did photosynthesis measurements and other things, but those didn't really give significant differences. So I'm just going to focus on these results. If you look back at the picture, you have, for example, provenance 16 from Jaumavi. Okay, it's very close to the Gulf of Mexico. And 19 from Saucillo. Okay, we're in the middle of the desert, Chihuahuan desert right there. And these are native provenances, okay? These are not grown trees, native trees. So you already see that by looking at the stomatal density, there's a difference here, okay? A lot more stomata, and you can see them right here, if you go close to the coast than if you're in the desert. And actually, if we plot the number of stomata, which is right here, stomatal density, along the longitude, okay, so basically the Gulf of Mexico is here, okay, around 90, 98 degrees west, and you see that there's an inverse trend, okay, as you go east. I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong, direct trend as you go east with the stomatal density. So stomata tend to increase as you move towards the Gulf of Mexico. Whether that means something or not, that's another story. But indeed, they have seen in other research papers that stomatal density could be an indicator of drought resistance. So in this particular graphs here, we actually plotted the carbon-13 discrimination and the stomatal density, and this time we actually plotted them against annual precipitation, because latitude, actually longitude, is really not a factor that you would expect affects plants as much as other environmental factors like precipitation. This bubble graph actually shows precipitation, and of course the size of the bubble is proportional to the amount of rain that those places receive. So you understand, and it's logical, as you move west, just like in the U.S., precipitation decreases. And when you plot precipitation and stomatal density, and again, you see that there's a pretty direct relationship. Water use efficiency was not affected as much. There's actually a slight inverse relationship, which is not what you would expect. We usually expect an increase in water use efficiency as you move west. And this actually, a higher number here in the delta indicates a reduced water use efficiency. But it's very, very minor, because you can see that it's R squared is a very small number in this case. So what does this tell us? Well, it looks, again, there are some differences. And this is not the first time, because LJ has done several investigation on these trees. But it's another element that we might want to consider in the future if we want to go find the pecan of the future, or maybe the one that we could use for breeding program. We might want to look at this data and try to go find it where we think is a place that's conducive to adaptation. This is a study that I'm doing in collaboration with Astrid Volder and Haley Hanna. I saw you earlier. Where are you? Oh, there you go. Is of course our master's student working on this project. We're trying to understand what the relationship is between fertilization of young pecan trees right after establishment, and in particular how that affects root production. Okay. We also want to see if there's an interaction between different nitrogen application rates and the production of roots itself, and how the production of roots actually kind of reflects whether it does or not the above ground growth, okay, so canopy growth and shoot growth and so forth. So we apply nitrogen at 5 different rates last year, 2 times, May 15 and June 15, and the 5 rates is the one that's recommended by the Texas Pecan Handbook for newly established trees, and then we cut it in half, and then in half again, and then we double it. Okay, so you have a 1x, 2x, and then half and 1/4 x, and of course a no treatment control. And if you want to know the actual numbers, you know, here they are. Okay. So we also apply nitrogen 15, you know, stable isotope, because as you know, most of you probably know, it's an isotope that can, of course, is not radioactive and can be traced quite easily in both soil and roots. So we can follow, you know, the fate of that applied nitrogen within the plant. Here's the amount of nitrate which is extracted from the soil at 2 different depth, 20 centimeter, and then between 20 and 40. And so this is again the 1x. Okay, this is the recommended rate. You can see pretty much the up to, you know, the recommended rate. The amount of nitrogen, the nitrate that actually moves, leaches down to the deeper profile is about the same. So indeed, that kind of suggests that this is indeed a good recommended rate, because you don't have a lot of waste. Okay, it's you know, pretty much everything stays in the top 20 centimeter, which is where most of the active roots are, especially for young trees. If you go over, if you double, you see that at this point nitrogen starts leaching, okay, as expected, because of course nitrogen is very mobile and soluble. So you know, we hope that we can improve some of the recommendations for growers, or verify actually in this case. And because we know that a lot of growers, they just tend to put a lot of nitrogen without really knowing whether that's a good time for the plants to put it, but based on, you know, a lot of recommendations that are passed on. But I think this is the first time that we can actually do something on the actual roots. And of course, Haley's taken a bunch of pictures on the actual growth, okay, and then we can hopefully later on utilize some image in software to actually look at plant growth. Surprise! We had a few surprises, but we're you know, not really what you would expect. For example, the relative growth rate of the trunk was not affected by application rate, and also when we look at the actual roots. This is, by the way, a picture of the tubes that we use for the mini rhizotron. So we inserted these tubes at 45 degrees angle. They're a clear, you know, a PVC pipe, and then there's a scanner that's inserted inside, and so we get images of the roots, and we can follow. Okay, Haley's taking images every 2 weeks, and then we can follow the you know, the same portion of the root system and see what roots die, what roots are produced, and how they grow and so forth. She's also, again, collecting soil coarse, and we're separating the coarse roots from the fine roots, and then, you know, we basically scan an image and we can quantify. You know, we don't have to do it, you know, by hand. Now we have software that can do that. So another, I was telling you, other surprises that we kind of really didn't expect was that nitrogen treatments did not affect photosynthesis, okay? And for example, here we have the 0, this is the 2x, and this is 1x. And you see that throughout the season, the 3 treatments were exactly the same. So even the 0, the first year, you know, it had the same photosynthesis rates as, except for 1 date, you know, but definitely not a lot. At first, we're a little bit, you know, doubtful, or you know, what is going on here. But actually, there's some research that was published not too long ago that indicates that pecans tend to store a lot of the nitrogen right after you supply, and so we're kind of expecting maybe some different results this coming year, which will be the third summer, but the second after the fertilization. So we might actually see some differences in the growth and maybe photosynthesis rate too. Okay, water use efficiency also did not change except for the first date, where we actually saw a higher water use efficiency in the 2x. And then that may be caused by the increased amount of nitrogen and thus chlorophyll in the leaves, which may have caused an increase in the efficiency. And this is the third part of my research. This is the one that I've been working with Luis Cisneros, and most of it actually, most of it has been supported by the Designing Food for Health grant and through the VFIC. So I'm just going to give you a little review of the facts, what we know about the nutritional properties of pecans. And we've known for about almost 10 years, 7, 8 years that pecans are the nuts that have the highest content of antioxidants of all the ones that we have investigated, at least temperate tropical nuts that we commonly use. So you can see here the ORAC value, which is a standard way to indicate antioxidant capacity, is a lot higher than almond, hazelnuts, and our biggest enemy, walnuts. Okay, so we know again the antioxidant capacity is high. We know that the oil improves basically your lipid profile, and it can decrease the risk of heart disease. And just as recently as last month, a new paper came out from the Loma Linda University group that's been very, very important for this type of studies. They actually proved that if you eat pecans, actually it increases your antioxidant defense after meals. Okay, so basically including some pecans every time you eat, it make you, I guess, stronger. I don't know. The research that our previous master student she defended last summer, Gabi Ortiz, did was focusing on tannins. Okay, just a little reminder that there are two categories of tannins: condensed tannins and hydrolyzable tannins. Condensed tannins are the ones that you find, for example, in green tea, okay, or in wine, the resveratrol and all that kind of stuff, in chocolate. The hydrolyzable tannin are the ones that you find typically in nuts and pomegranates, strawberries, and berries, and so forth. So in here again, some of the benefits of either category: the condensed tannin, lower risk of cardiovascular disease, and prevention of low density lipoprotein. Oxidation of the cholesterol and so forth. And again, hydrolyzable tannin is the one that we're focusing on, and again, a lot of good things. Okay, so the objectives of our studies, it's a 4 or 5 year long study. First was screen some, and here we were just talking about you. Screen some varieties to see if there were differences in varieties, because the published research that we had until we started working on it didn't really indicate varietal differences. The researchers, they just say they went to the store, bought pecans, and started analyzing. But with so many different genotypes identified, it was worth to actually spend some time looking at whether there are differences. And indeed, this is just a few of the results. But indeed, for example, this is just 4 of the cultivars that Gabi investigated, and you can see that there are some significant differences in terms of the tannin content, elagitotannin, antioxidant capacity, and so forth. So, and again, something that it might be worth to pursue and look at particular variety, those that look more promising. She also identified 12 different elagitannins, and some of these actually had never been described for pecans, most of them. So so how are tannins important for our our system, our organism? Basically, when we consume them, of course, they go through the intestinal tract and digest them. And what happens is that if the molecule is small, they can be directly absorbed by some of the cells, okay? And but they can also there's also a portion that doesn't get absorbed if it's a little bit too big. But it seems that they also have a beneficial, function on our health. Okay, for example, in this case indicates that they might actually act against pathogenic bacteria. So, looking at what happens after we consume this elagitannins, basically they get broken down. There's a hydrolysis, reaction, and so at this point, this is just one of the elagitannins, but in this case, peduncollagen gets hydrolyzed to ellagic acid, and then ellagic acid goes through the microflora and gets converted to urolithins. Okay, and urolithins were actually the focus of Anna Gabi's investigation. So again, just to summarize, you see this elagitannin gets chewed on, and then it goes down to the gut, and then again, urolithin is what eventually is the final building block that gets assimilated. So some of the reported benefits of urolithin are again, you see here, against colon and prostate cancer, not necessarily from pecans, okay? These studies were not done on pecans, but on other fruits and vegetables. And you can see here anti-inflammatory activity, protection against oxidative stress, and so forth. So what Anna Gabi did, she actually checked and apply these urolithins to cell cultures and see if that decreases cell inflammation and formation of adipose cells. Okay, so to prevent obesity, which of course is a big issue. And we indeed saw some positive signs that urolithins may have on decreasing inflammation in particular. Okay, so this is an important portion of my research, and I think it would be a very good opportunity for growers because not only you have kind of the social function that you're learning something that is beneficial for health, humans in general, but just by looking at the practical aspect, anything that you can add to the value of pecans can increase profitability for growers. So they're actually very interested. Anytime we have results, they want to hear about it and possibly include them in brochures and so forth. So functional food, pills or extracts, we have shelves when we go to supermarkets, and some of them are good for nothing. We know that, but indeed, I mean, that's definitely an avenue that we hope we can continue on working on this. So future major activities. During that meeting that we had at the Nobel Foundation a couple of weeks ago, somebody had the brilliant idea to nominate me to kind of be one of the leaders of a coordinated agriculture a CAP grant for next year. So something I'm not really looking for, but I guess I couldn't say no. So that's going to keep me busy, I'm sure, in the fall. And meanwhile, we're working on an IPM pipe project, which was it's actually led by Marvin Harris in entomology. And this is a very interesting project. Basically, it's a website which allows growers to upload their information, whether it's right now it's really targeted for insect and pest in general. So for example, to look at appearance of a pecan nut case bearer. Okay, so a certain grower can pinpoint their orchard and indicate the dates that this insects start emerging, and then the website immediately pulls up the weather condition, and thanks to some mathematical model, it kind of gives a prediction for other growers that are nearby, you know, on when to apply the chemicals. Okay, so that's an incredible tool, and what they're planning to do right now is in the upcoming months to expand that to also horticulture aspects of pecan development, more in particular phenological development. So instead of the appearance of a certain insect, we're going to start, the growers are going to start inserting data about bud break, about flower emergence, and then shuck split and everything, so that we can have a better idea what happens where. Okay, and again, this is of course free for everybody. It was actually a project supported by, funded by USDA. And so Moni and I are going to be involved and try to implement this or help for the growers. Another thing it's not really coming up, but I guess it is, because ISHS requires, you know, working on symposia way ahead of time, and rightly so, because it really takes a long time to put together. So LJ kind of had this great idea of creating the first symposium on pecans and other Carya, and to have that in College Station. And so that's going to happen in July 2013. Still don't know the exact venue, but it's going to be between MSc, because by then it's going to be hopefully finished, and maybe this department, or anyway. So there are a lot of options for that. We have to start working on that. So that's going to keep us busy. And then, you know, after I went to Peru, you know, people immediately started getting interested about maybe doing something together, because again, they have pecan orchards over there. They also grow them in the desert, and who knows, I might, you know, collaborate with them. I've received also thanks to LJ some contacts in Italy. There's some research institute they're interested in planting some pecan trees for experimental, to look at how it would grow there, mainly for timber production. But of course, if the fruit is there, it's, you know, they'll take that as well. And again, China is, you know, it's a growing market, is a growing site for production, and so there's some potential. And here's looking at export to China in the last pretty much 9 years, and you can see that it went from pretty much nothing, okay, to about 90 million or more pounds. That's over 1/3 of the domestic production is now going to China. Okay, so this is just a result of very, very aggressive marketing programs. That there was somebody from the Shellers Association and other, you know, pecan groups that really started marketing these pecans at trade shows and so forth, and that picked up fairly quickly, as you can tell, which is great for growers, and that's the reason why the price is going up so much, okay, because now you have people that are willing to pay that money, and so, you know, the price is going up. And the problem is that we might actually run out of supply for domestic consumption, or, you know, whatever is left behind might not be excellent quality. And we want to make sure that that doesn't happen, because we could actually lose some of the traditional customers, you know, in our own country, if too much of the production end up going in China. So that's something that, you know, growers are happy, because, I mean, a lot of them, they actually sell their crop even before they harvest it, okay? They just, you know, the truckloads of pecans are all shipped to China. So just to give you an idea of what we're talking about here, China, of course, you all know that's over 1 billion people. And not everybody's poor, as, you know, somebody might think. There's actually the middle class in China is almost the same as the U.S. population. Okay, so if you think about it, even if the price is high, a lot of Chinese can actually afford the American nut. You know, they don't have a name in their, you know, dictionary for pecans, or if it is, it's pecan, but they don't have their own, because of course it's a nut, it's a product that is not it's not traditionally, you know, it wasn't grown there. So a GDP that's, you know, extremely high forth in the world. And here, there's some of the pictures I wanted to show you of a trip that I recently took in September. They invited me to go check out what they're doing over there. And thanks to LJ who gave me this map, I was able to pinpoint places where they told me they are growing pecans right now. They have started growing some pecan orchards. You can see here, just to give you an idea, this is a Yunnan province. The latitude of this place is about the same as the states of Chihuahua and Durango in Mexico. Okay, the Henan province over here, where you have the northernmost orchard, is equivalent to Oklahoma and Kansas. So you understand that we're covering. It's not a coincidence that pecans actually could be grown there, because the latitude is pretty much the same range as the one that you have in the American continent. These orchards are very small right now. Okay, we're talking about just a few hectares, here and there, and unfortunately I didn't get to see any of those because I was mainly in this area over here. Okay, and these are major distances if you have to go from one province to the other. So, but I'll show you some pictures of what they actually have over there, because the genus Carya is not necessarily something that you find only in the American continent. Okay, Carya cathayensis and many other Caryas. Actually, you see the list here of some of the most common ones. You see cathayensis, dabechanensis, hunanensis are actually native Chinese hickories that you find over there. And so this is the one that has the greatest commercial potential, and it already has. It's a Carya cathayensis, Chinese hickory. It's a typical. You see, the leaf is this kind of typical compound leaf that you find in pecans. The major difference is here, okay, because it doesn't. The buds are not covered by scales, okay. They have this kind of red tint. So it's not a very large tree. It doesn't reach the size that a pecan tree reaches. But what they've started doing over there, they have started grafting actually this Chinese hickory onto the pecan rootstock, and they have seen that really boosts the growth, and they can have a faster and greater production. Okay, so this is a small Chinese hickory orchard over there that I visited. And this is the product, okay? And I brought you some samples so you can take a look what they look like. And I also have a catalog of a shelling company and see everything they process.
Does the reciprocal graft work?
Yes, it does.
Does it have a working effect?
I did not see it. They don't do it. But we should try, definitely. Because that could be a good thing to. So I visited this shelling plant. You see here that what they do, they still harvested, except for this first orchard, but they still harvested from the wild. Okay, they actually go to a little town and they buy from locals, and so you see all this. Men and women, they walk up the hill and then just harvest this hickories. By hand, basically everything. It's still a very traditional type of agriculture, and then they sell them to the shelling plant. And what they do, they just you lay them out like this on this concrete slab, and then leave them there for a few days so they dry out, and before they start processing them. And this is the final product. It's it kind of reminds you of a little pecan, but it's a little smaller, as you can tell by the size. Okay, and they're all cracked by hand. Okay, but that doesn't mean again that they're not interested in pecans. I was able to see a pecan nursery. Okay, and here's a young pecan a nursery. It looks like the production is going up. And here's some of the trees. They're not in grafted, but they have started grafting. This have been grafted, for example. It's very simple, very traditional. They just go ahead and stick the seed in here in this bed, raised bed, and just whatever comes out, they take it, and whatever it's nothing mechanized or anything like that. And these are actually some pecan trees that are growing over there. And there's a bamboo forest in the back that's also for wood production. It's not natural forest. Some of the pests likely transfer from the hickories to the pecans. You see, this is a pecan tree, and look at this big guy here that's pretty much eating up the entire, all the leaves. And there's another one here that didn't come out very well, but just, there's going to be a lot of issues that they might have to deal with, because having a native hickory right there, most likely, they might have some. This is their research orchard, by the way. Okay, I was quite impressed, negatively impressed. They had some plantings back in the 80s. I think somebody started getting in touch with the U.S. Scientists. I don't know who. There was an exchange of material. Okay, so mainly they started bringing there some trees of Stewart Mayhem. They have these two varieties that somehow they're interested in, and then they started collecting the seeds or graft wood, and they started grafting material, but they don't know what to do with it. Okay, so they brought me here and they say, what should we do here? Why aren't we getting any pecan? Well, I mean, look around. I mean, there's no weed control. I mean, no pruning whatsoever. And then the choice of the site in this particular case was, I mean, apparently they just had that land, but there was not a really a study to see, what the climate. Most likely it's good, but the pattern, pollination patterns, because the pecan is a species and that. Is heterodichogamous, also that means flower. Male and female flowers mature at different times, so if you don't have a good match, you're not going to have pollination. So, and they didn't know any of that. I mean, it's just in parentheses, I want to add that pecan growers in the United States were not very happy with me when I went over there. They're afraid that I'm, going out and telling them all the secrets. They're easily found on the web for free. So, but it's something that I have to think about. If I ever decide to do anything with China, I'll have to be, very, very PC and make sure that everybody's happy. I believe that there should be, ways to collaborate. I also believe that with 1.3 billion people, I mean, they can plant a lot of pecans and still we're going to have enough for everybody, and I don't think we're going to put anybody out of business. And definitely that's something that is not going to happen for at least 30, 40, or maybe even more years, okay? Because right now, I don't think they have the technology, they don't have the equipment, they don't have even the land to actually grow, all these pecans just to fulfill their needs. Just wanted to thank the people that I have more recently collaborated with. I've already thanked Luis and LJ and George Ray for helping us manage the orchard, and Astrid and my last 3 graduate students, and the South Bay Foundation and Wiley Hatchet that are supporting the orchard, and without their help, definitely we wouldn't have an orchard, managed orchard right now. And then the 2 major grants that have supported, actually it's more than 2, but to kind of summarize it, the Specialty Crop Research Initiative that supports Haley and her project, and the Design and Food for Health grant, and the VFIC, Texas Pecan Board, and Texas Pecan Grower Association. So I guess that's all I have. If you have questions, yes, Tim.
Going back to the drought tolerance thing where you took the seedlings from just squaw population, you say you did see a correlation between like drought tolerance and stomatal density?
Yes.
You did?
Well, hold on. I have not seen that, but they have in other plants. Yeah, no, I mean, we wanted to. That's why we looked at photosynthesis and carbon-13, but we did not see that coloration. So,
and
yes.
They're a really long-lived, really, really slow crop, but you don't have any idea of how heritable that is, those traits to you, like the stomatal density and stuff. I know
It is.
Other ones aren't heritable.
It is heritable. It is fixed, because what we've done, when Madulika, part of her research, she actually sampled, let's say, one variety from different parts of the grown at different parts of the United States, and the numbers were the same. So that means that the stomatal density is not something that's controlled by the environment. But photosynthesis may be. That's why we didn't see differences in photosynthesis, but differences in stomatical density. So that's pretty fixed character.
Leo, in terms of water use efficiency when you're using C13, when you're looking at the different ecotypes, did you stress any of those plants at all prior to?
Stress, is that what you say?
Stress.
No. No, we didn't have the condition.
In terms of delta 13, C12, C13, if you were to go back and stress some of those plants, those different ecotypes, you might well see some differences in water use efficiency compared to just taking samples from unstressed plants.
That's definitely a good idea. The challenge is that these are big trees already established, and it's so difficult to then.
Did you say mature pecan tree would pump out 200 gallons of water a day?
That's about right.
How many gallons of water does it take to produce a pound of pecans?
I forgot. We had the numbers. Monty, do you remember? I forgot. It was recently we kind of sat down and put some numbers, but it could be done.
How long is the growing season? And
Growing season is about, it's about 200.
14 gallons of
14 gallons for 1 pecan.
Okay. Thanks. I remember hearing the.
Need to be looking at those root stocks.
or some succulents, more sustainable.
What is the status right now on rootstocks? Because, I mean, everything here in the States is all seedling produced
Yeah,
rootstocks.
no rootstocks.
And actually, you were down in Lima, and Gavin and Medina a number of years ago actually published some stuff with pecans, and they actually came up with some mounding stooling techniques, and they could actually clonally regenerate pecan rootstock. And I've always wondered why we've never done that in this country, because, I mean, hell, if you come up with a semi-working...
I think it's not impossible to kind of propagate by tissue culture, but from what I understand, it's a very weak individual. It doesn't really support the growth of stock. Am I right, LJ? I mean,
we've succeeded in doing air layers and getting them on their own roots, and they're not well anchored. I have resisted trying to do clone propagation until we knew more about genetic diversity, because we have incredible diversity that we don't understand, and we have huge differences across the range of soils and climates. We chose the wrong individual to propagate, and we had a monoculture below ground, and it was susceptible to something like cotton root rot that we hadn't properly selected for our nematodes. Then what we'd be doing is making ourselves vulnerable at a level where now we are protected by the diversity that we have in seedling pecan material. And we have regionally selected seed stocks that are used across the range. So again, the diversity that we have below ground, I think, is an advantage until we know more about the genetic diversity.
But in terms of planting a pecan orchard, though, like what's the time period from the standpoint of it coming into bearing?
Well, the precocity is dictated by the science,
Right.
and a well-grown pecan tree can come in 4 years after
And
planting.
it would be profitable in 4 years?
No,
When would it be profitable?
so 8, 12, something like that.
about 10, 12.
That's a long time from a cash flow standpoint. Might have said an orchard.
And yet, they're so productive and the value is so high, growers are making incredible money, comparable to the highest agricultural crops you can find.
Yeah.
Pecan is tremendously hard to root and to establish itself as a taproot. And you've got juvenility involved in this. And scientists have been working on rooting pecans for, 70 years now, at least. And it's just genetically not suited at all. And so we've got major hurdles to overcome with that. Benton worked on that for years. And supposedly it's been solved 3 or 4 times, but it's not at all utilizable by the industry at all.
I was remember seeing actually rows of layered material, and it was, I think they were using Stuart pecan. That was one of the pecans they were working with, and they were pretty successful in being able to get those to go ahead and root and layer. Now I don't know what type of a rootstock system they would make after that, but they were able to go ahead and layer those to get a root. I always wondered why aren't we at least looking at some of these systems as well as seedling systems?
It's easy to get air layer pecan and get roots on it, but establishing a tree is a totally different story. They're just never thrifty, and they're never well anchored, and they have these big fleshy roots instead of the finer roots. So
That describes the mulling rootstocks on apple too, but they sure do produce a lot of fruit.
Yeah. But they don't last very long. They're not supposed to last that long, I guess. Apple trees.
The oldest rooted pecans on their own roots are in Athens, Georgia, with Darrell Sparks, if they're still alive. But those are probably, 40 years old now or something. But they're not thrifty at all.
Leo,
Yes. Oh,
you
sorry.
talked about health benefits a little bit, and I was trying to pick on specifically on, like, you have walnut already approved for the labels, good for the heart health.
Mm-hmm.
What all it takes for the pecan to get
It's
that?
it's in.
Not similar to
It is in the same. No, we can get that label too. In fact, when I was having pecan sale a few years ago, I got the label from the pecan growers, and we could put it on. Yeah, it's included in that group. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever check the regular bearers in China?
I'm sorry, I ever check what?
The regular bearers of pecans, the regular bearing trees?
What do you mean regular bearing trees? I mean trees that don't show that?
Yeah. Usually in mangoes we observe both regular bearing varieties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have some varieties that are not as pronounced, okay, but there's always something there. You don't have a single variety that does not show that one. We're still at the point we still don't know the mechanisms very well. It's a relatively young tree that's been cultivated and studied for just about 120, 30 years. So it's still very wild, okay? It's not like a citrus or an apple that's been grown and cultivated for thousands of years. So the selection has probably certainly favored those individuals that didn't show the alternate bearing pattern. But in pecans, it's still like a horse that we need to tame,
Is some of the selection pressure, does some of this come from like pecan weevils or something? Where I think Marvin Harris was saying that, like one year it's like a boomer crop, and so it's too
Yeah.
much from the and the other year they start.
Yeah, because the pecan weevil has a 2-year cycle, so they believe that there's maybe a way to, was it the chicken or the egg, but definitely the insect has adapted to this biennial status. And the Native American the first explorers that came to this continent, they reported that Native Americans used to go to the same site every other year because they knew that this was happening. So it wasn't worth for them to, walk miles and miles, or whatever unit they used back then, to go to. So
it's all the trees
a what?
every other year? They wouldn't-
No. I mean, it's and it's very spotty. You could have, sometimes it's a branch level, sometimes it's a tree level, sometimes it's an orchard level. But when you put them all together, pretty much every grower is going to have a decrease in production in their orchard. So
I'm sure people have tried thinning before, that doesn't.
thinning, yes. We don't have chemical thinners. That's one of the things that we might want to. It's been tried. A lot of things have been tried. But not successfully. So pruning helps, kind of eliminate summer pruning, winter pruning eliminates some of the size, the canopy size, so that you don't have a big bumper crop one year. It helps. A lot of things. Good management help, but it doesn't eliminate it. I think it's time to go home.